We have three big news stories to share that affect Tesla today. First, Tesla's Cybertruck has received a 5-star overall safety rating from NHTSA. This includes the lowest overall probability of injury and the lowest chance of rollover of any pickup truck tested by NHTSA. We'll take a look at all the official before and after Cybertruck crash test photos. Second, electric truck maker Nikola has officially filed for bankruptcy. I guess it's not so easy to create these trucks after all. At its peak, Nikola was worth $30 billion. More than Ford Motors' valuation at the time. And finally, we have more bad news for Legacy Auto. The planned merger between Honda and Nissan is now off the table. Why? Well, two reasons. First, reversing its promise for a merger of equals, Honda wanted instead to turn Nissan into a subsidiary. But also, Honda wanted Nissan to ditch its technology for hybrid vehicles. These are the last gaps for air, and we'll likely hear more Legacy Autos struggle like this again and again. I got Brian White joining us. Brian has his own YouTube channel called FutureAza. Welcome, Brian.
Good morning, Herbert. This is some interesting stuff.
Lots of interesting things that are happening in the Legacy Auto every week. It's kind of weird. Like I always do a show and there's always this positive thing about Tesla and then there's negative things about these autos. And guys, I'm not trying to do that. That's the news.
Right. I do get people who will say that I am too bullish on Tesla. And I point out videos I make that are critical. And they say, right, but most of what you publish is positive. I said, right, the news. We call that the news. Most of the news is positive.
Yeah. So this is coming from NHTSA, right? The National Highway for Transportation, sharing this information. Basically, Tesla Cybertruck has officially received a 5-star overall safety rating from NHTSA. The Cybertruck has the lowest overall probability of injury and the lowest chance of rollover of any pickup truck tested by the government entity. So this is their webpage. And it's, by the way, it's all variants, including 2024. And they got their 5-star ratings here. And Wes, who's in charge of the Cybertruck division, he said, great result from an independent rating agency. This result applies to 2024 and 2025 Cybertrucks. So here's some pictures. And this is before, and then this is the after.
Oh, that's the after. Okay.
Thanks, Brian. I mean, like it's obviously the front is designed to crumple. And so that is why you're seeing crumpling here. But the most important thing is the airbags and the cabin, inside cabin is protecting the passengers. And that's exactly what happened. So take a look at the thread. Thank you for Sawyer for putting all these photos together. Pre and post test front view of the test vehicle. Yep. Yeah. This is the windshield view. Again, it looks like a crack, but it didn't break open, which is great. Here's the underbody view. That's a really nice view because you can really see the protection here. Really real. That's what this is designed for. Specifically, it looks like it breaks away like by spreading wide as opposed to being pushed inwards. The driver dummy and the vehicle interior view. It looks like there's almost no interior cabin compression here. The pre and post impact view of electric propulsion drive. It's like it looks brand new, brand new. Nothing. Right. I don't see a thing that's affecting this at all. And then pre and post test left view of the test vehicle. Yeah. Again, front crumples. That's what it's for. It's interesting that the crumple zone is actually really short. Like I actually do think that the nose is a little snubby.
It is a very short compression. So it is a 180-page report that NHTSA published. I read it last night. I read the darn thing. It is gruesome and painful, and I don't recommend it. But there's some interesting insights in there. So because the front end crumples in the way that it does, and if you were to ask for an ideal crumple on that front end, that's what you would want. The hood buckles up perfectly. The suspension arms snap exactly like you'd want. That is a perfect crumple for that form factor. If it crumples back any more, you start getting windshield deformation, which could enter the occupant home. You don't want that. So, well, if you've only got a foot of crush instead of 3 feet, how on earth does it get a 5-star rating? And if you look at the different neck strains, the different chest strains, what you'll find is that it isn't best in class in every category, but it is best in class in the sum. And neck strain is measured in 3 or 4 different ways. And on one of them, it's a little higher than others, but it still passes. But in the others, it's so much lower that the total force on the neck is still well within acceptable limits. And you can offset that with a more sophisticated airbag system, which is what they did. So this is exactly what we wanted. Those people, the haters, have been so loud for so long saying it doesn't crumple, it's going to kill you inside, all these crazy things. And now what are they going to say? Well, in one of the 4 neck criterias, it's slightly above the competition. They're not going to say that because the PDF is too long to read and they're not good at reading.
And one of the shows that we did last year, I thought it was a fantastic analysis by you, because people said that Cybertruck is a killer machine. It's a killing machine. It is, how dare you, Tesla, to create a truck that is, stainless steel. It's going to kill people. And, you don't want to be hit by truck. But actually, what the analysis showed was that if you look at the front of the truck and where the height of the truck is, it's actually low. And so, yes, of course, anybody hit by any truck, you're going to get hurt. I'm not saying you're not. But what kills people is the height of that hood. And actually, the Cybertruck is very low here, as opposed to, if I showed you photos of all these monster trucks out there by Ford and GM and all the other guys, they're really high. That's what that's what kills people.
If you look at this picture, you'll see that right about the windshield height is the height of the bumper of the front, the entire front on most trucks. So this gives you better visibility. You can better see in front of you. You can better see out farther, and you understand. And of course, when you actually get hit by something like this, you don't want to get hit by any car. And worth noting that the collisions were done at 35 miles per hour and all the doors still operated. Now, if you come to a dead stop from 60, 80, 100 miles an hour, you might have problems opening the door. I would expect that with any vehicle. But at 35, the door's still open just fine.
So lowest probability of injury, lowest chance of rollover of any pickup truck.
Yeah. No surprise.
Because the heavy weight of the batteries, it's all the cars, all Teslas are done this way, of course.
But it outperformed Rivian and Lightning as well on the rollover test, which tells you Tesla's doing a little bit more than the other guys.
Yeah, and so these things, honestly, the Teslas are the safest cars in the world. Top 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5 cars in the world are all safest is Teslas. So
yes. And for the people who don't want to dig into the PDF, of all the categories that were pass fail, Tesla passed. Of all the categories that were assigned a numerical score 1 to 5, Tesla got a 5 on all but one of them.
Which is what?
I don't recall right now, but it was passenger physical space, I guess. It was, yeah. So the driver's still 5-star, but the passenger's 4.
I see. Interesting. Okay. Well, anyways, great news. Of course, NHTSA overall safety. Tesla has always kept saying that safety is the most important thing for them. People don't realize also it's just all these little tiny features that Tesla has, right? Then they just announced with the Model Y, for example, they have an in-cabin radar, and it can know where the passengers are sitting, what their heart rates are. And of course, it can, I think he's already mentioned that it knows when the seat has a baby seat in it, and then it knows that there's a baby there, and so therefore the airbags deploy differently, those kind of things, right? The seat belts deploy differently, so these things add up.
Tesla goes to extreme lengths. They're one of those few car makers that doesn't try to game the test for good scores. They try to build a safe car, and you can see that. I've mentioned before when NHTSA introduced the small overlap rigid barrier test, a lot of cars failed spectacularly, and they had to scramble to do mid-cycle refreshes because their cars were just not safe in those kinds of collisions. But then you get to a company like Mercedes or Tesla, where go ahead, change the test tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You might just find that you have to build a stronger rig, like they found when they tried to roll the Model S or Y and it broke the rig. They couldn't do it. So these are all exciting and encouraging bits of news for safety. I've seen people say, well, Tesla has the highest death rate per vehicle or per mile or per something because they're including all the people that go 135, to which I say, don't go 135. But if you're going to, do it in the safest car possible.
Well, the best accident is no accident.
Yes.
And beyond the vehicle kind of create, the manufacturing of it, it's the software. So the FSD is the number one thing that can make things safer. But one example that I personally just experienced myself recently, like this weekend, was automatic emergency braking. So many cars are, of course, and it's kind of a rule now that you have to have automatic emergency braking, right? So if there's a car in front of you, stop suddenly, your car should immediately stop as well. Okay. But one thing that apparently, and again, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that this is true, that every car out there, most car makers, they're able to do the emergency braking when it stops like that. I guess I'm not showing it here. Can I do it this way? When the car stops like that. But what they're not able to do, that Tesla's able to do, is if a car is coming in
cross traffic,
and then emergency stopping. So they can spot the car in front, but they can't spot the cars that are driving on the side. And that's one thing that Tesla's able to do. So what happened to me in the weekend was I was backing out of a parking space, but the parking space was very close to the entrance to the parking spot. So as I was backing out, there was nobody around me. A car came flying in from out the street into the parking spot. And immediately my car, as I'm backing out, because obviously I didn't see him because he's like flying in, immediately braked.
And so hard that you thought you hit something.
How did you know that?
Because I've had that experience. I was backing out of a parking spot at the ATM and I knew the car was there. I saw the car. I felt I had enough time and I kept backing out and it hit the brakes so hard. I was just sure I'd been hit.
No, I heard a big loud bang. I heard the brakes. I go, oh shit, what did I run over? I didn't run over anything, did I? And I went out there and I was like, everything's clear. Nothing. Exactly.
So in our case, it was an abundance of caution. Maybe we'd have caught it. Maybe in my case,
same with me.
But yeah, but the opposite of an abundance of caution is inadequate caution, and other brands do not have they don't have the sensors to detect cross traffic until it would be definitely too late. Ultrasonics can't see 40 feet out. That's not what they're designed for. So this is when you look at crash testing, I was trying to find crash test data on Sprinter type vans to compare it to the Cybertruck for all the people in Europe saying these will never be safe enough. And I looked for passenger collisions, pedestrian collisions. And what I found is they don't test pedestrian impact. They test pedestrian avoidance, and you get a pass fail on did you hit the pedestrian, and some of the vans didn't hit pedestrians and some of them did. So if that's the only measure of success, then Tesla would be at an advantage because their systems actually work. If you look at, well, this is just one test, right? NHTSA's very thorough and they do not like Tesla. I don't know that they like any brand, but they are very rigid with their rules. And if you go through the 180-page report, you'll see they document the temperature at the time of testing, the humidity at the time of testing. They are exceptionally thorough, and that's why the report is as long as it is.
Okay. Yeah. Abundance of caution, because yes, I was backing out and I was nowhere near this guy flying through and he had his own lane, but yeah, it happened. And I was like, pretty cool. Okay. Next one, of course, is there's another electric truck maker called Nikola. And we know that they've been struggling. Electric truck maker Nikola officially files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after scandal and cash burns. They were the ones that were making the Semi. And of course, famously, they rolled it down the hill and then they pretended it had a real engine, but actually they were just rolling it down the hill to make it look like it was driving. And so the interesting thing, of course, was at one point, at its peak, it's worth $30 billion. That was more than Ford's Motors valuation at the time. So this announcement just came after it warned investors on its Q3 earnings call that its cash would only keep it afloat through Q1. And here we are in Q1. So yeah, heavy scrutiny. Therefore, obviously the fraud scandal under CEO Trevor Milton, he went to jail for 4 years. He's actually out now, and tremendous amount of new CEOs. They're trying to figure out what to do. Well, it's over now. They're just the latest EV maker. You had a company called Fisker. They filed for Chapter 11. You had a company called Canoo. And this is expected. We're going to see a bunch of companies that are formed, and now they're being, there many of them will fail. Here's Trevor Milton. Spent 4 years in jail, but then of course he's back out again. And then GM was eyeing an 11% stake in Nikola as part of a cash-free deal in exchange for providing access to fuel cell technology. Well, of course, what a terrible investment that was for GM, one of many.
The problem with the GM deal was that GM was under the impression they were going to be getting all of Nikola's tech, and Nikola was under the impression they were getting all of GM's tech, and neither party did sufficient due diligence to determine that there was nothing there. There was no there. And GM pretty quickly unwound that deal when they realized, wait, they want us to provide the tech and build the trucks? That $30 billion valuation was at the peak of the EV craze, when every startup was getting money, when Nikola said, not only do we have the Semi and a jet ski and the Badger, the Nikola Badger, it's the finest truck you can get rendered on Fiverr. It doesn't exist. It never existed, but on paper it looked great. They're saying, look, the Nissan Leaf only has 88 miles of range while Tesla gets 300. All these other guys making trucks aren't going to make a truck like ours. Ours is going to get 500 miles of range with 1,000 horsepower and all these things. And we're going to sell it for, I don't remember, $35,000. And people said, my gosh, if they can do this, they are worth more than Ford. Well, they can't, they couldn't, they never could. It was all smoke and mirrors. I had a chance to chat with a gentleman in Portland who runs a electrification shop, who, along with his business partner, worked as a contractor for Nikola. They built systems inside that truck, and they were there at the big unveiling when the video was shown of it rolling downhill. And when that whole presentation ended, Trevor went to go and chat with him, only to find that those two gentlemen left in the middle of the presentation and never went back, because I am not going to get any part of this dirty business on my reputation. That truck doesn't drive. So the warning signs were there. I tried sounding alarm bells at the time. People who had invested and were hoping to get very rich very quickly told me I was crazy, I was blinded, I was foolish. I was such a Tesla fanboy, I couldn't possibly be objective about financial statements. And I tried to point out just the financials, just the actual numbers. And there's a limit to how far you can convince people who've already made up their mind. And it's unfortunate. And I've called pretty much all of these correctly so far, but maybe the next one that I get will be wrong.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that you were pretty harsh on Nikola. You did a fantastic review on them, and you got hit hard with people, the haters, and the lovers of Nikola, right? And but you're just reporting, like you said,
objective,
and analyzing, trying to see, right? If you found a car company that was doing incredibly well, you will say they're doing incredibly well. You're not,
and I do. And I do. I can find something good to say about every EV maker, and I do. Nissan Leaf is laughed at as being the worst car ever made, but I can tell you it's a great car for the use case. If you need a 20-mile commuter, pick up a used Leaf. They're like $4 or $5 grand. You're going to love it. But if you need a highway car, it's going to make your life miserable. It's not meant for that. So
wow. You know a lot. We're just about to talk about this.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
Crazy smart, Brian. You know a damn lot. I did not know this fact until just now about Nissan's hybrid tech is only designed for like a Japan market, where it's like in the city, short haul. It's not designed for the US because US, you need to have highways and they're hybrid. So I didn't know you knew this, bro. Very intelligent. Okay, so Automotive News reported this today that you and I have been following this, that Honda and Nissan were about to merge. And that's because legacy auto are struggling and they need to do something. And so this was one of their ways to do it. But now this merger is failed and they're pulling away. Maybe they'll, retrieve it. But right now, the reason is Honda wanted Nissan to ditch Nissan's hybrid tech. They wanted Nissan to adopt their hybrid tech. That's reported by the Japanese newspaper here. And also part of that is the merger. Initially, they were going to be a merger of equals. But now, last minute demand, Honda saying, nope, you guys are going to be a subsidiary for us. And so that was one of the reasons they scuttled this merger. But this hybrid tech is interesting, right? So Nissan had an early lead over its Japanese competitors, Toyota and Honda, in electric vehicles. But it has, while they had an early in EV, they lagged on hybrids. So it's obvious that we are a little bit better than Nissan when it comes to hybrid vehicles, the Honda official said. And it was a clash of egos. And I just want to get to that part where it kind of said exactly what you said, right? Which is right here. The reason why Nissan did not port the technology that they've been selling in Europe and Asia to the US is that it's not as fuel efficient at highway speeds, making it impractical in the US. The technology is also suited for smaller vehicles, but its high cost makes it less than ideal for those price sensitive models. So it they're trying to say here that Nissan's hybrid is just not the right thing, and that's why Honda asked for this. But Nissan said they've already addressed this with their third generation system, and that was going to come out in early 2027. So that is what's happening. Isn't it funny that they are fighting over hybrid technology?
Well, at least they're not fighting over hydrogen. That's a step in the right direction. There is big money behind hydrogen, still pushing it. If you were to make the mistake of looking up hydrogen vehicles on Google News, you would find that there are a lot of clearly sponsored publications still pushing it. For what reason, I can't imagine. The contract must still just be running in the background. But you've got these companies. Toyota is inarguably too big to fail. There's a cutoff at which a company is no longer too big to fail. And I would argue that it's really tough to find second place on that list. I think Honda is probably too big to fail. But once you get to Nissan, their numbers have collapsed over the last 5 years, certainly over the last 10. And below that, then you've got Mitsubishi, who was trying to get in on that as a third partner in that merger. And then you've got Suzuki and some others. I think the objective was to make Honda-Nissan and maybe Honda-Nissan Mitsubishi this second company that's too big to fail. And it feels like the government just kind of pushed them together into a room and said, you kids figure this out, because I want you to be too big to fail. And right now, none of you are. So if you don't solve this, I'll solve it. And you may not like it. Now go to your room. So they would say, but I can understand why Nissan would say, look, we have better e-tech than you. I think that's inarguable. The Aria is a great car. I've had a chance to drive it. I've got a review coming up for it this week or next. I've already shot it. But it is not exciting, but it's a good car. Then you've got Honda with their hybrids. They definitely know how to make a hybrid. Their hybrids are fine. They're good. But if you're going to go all in on something and one company says that we want to go electric and the other says we want to burn splody juice, that is a disconnect. And then, of course, you get to the power imbalance where if they're co-equals, which approach do you take? And if you want me to be the subsidiary, my friend, I am out. And that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. I think they're both out. That's the problem. Doesn't matter. Okay, last survival gasps here. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate your feedback here. Your knowledge is just incredible. Follow him on his YouTube channel. Check him out there, FutureAza. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.